Hey guys, thought I'd just start kicking off week 2 of the challenge, starting to talk about food a little bit and a really good method or approach that we have for it. Firstly, pretty handsome, if I don't say so myself. My ISO project's starting to come together. Hit like. No, really. Let's get into this. This week, a lot of you guys are just starting to journal your food. Like we said, don't try skew it. Just try, eat well. Eat as well as you're sort of hoping to eat, or what your best knowledge of eating well is, and just journal it. And we want to collect that data and use that data. And then at the end of the week, myself or Kristen or Christy or whoever is going to have a look at it and help you sort of dial things a little bit. But we've got a bit of a framework that I've worked on. I've worked on this with the help of Kristen and with the help of a lot of diet-related books and stuff that I've read over the years. And I think it's a really good, simple system for changing your diet or changing nutrition. It sort of helps for which stage you are in terms of experience, knowledge, maybe habits as well. If your habits are very poor at the moment, it's it's like near impossible to go from a terrible diet to a macro counted perfect diet. It's impossible. It's really hard to do. So we've got a bit of a system and a frac. So I'm going to explain it now, hopefully as quickly and briefly as I can, but hopefully it helps make sense to you guys. And it's a bit of a sliding system where you can sort of go to the more complex, you can go back a little bit, you can chop and change and that, but it's how it works. And some of you have heard us talk about this before. So the first stage we call be better. The point of this stage is just to start making better choices. So if your diet's pretty poor and you don't know anything about calories or carbs and fats, you don't know any of that stuff, let's just pretend that you don't know what food really does apart from fill up your tummy. You just start with just making better choices, whatever your version of that is. For most people that means might cut a little bit back on takeout and soft drink. I might include more water, include more vegetables, try have less chocolate, the things that we know, cut back on breads and stuff like that. So what that actually is, what you're doing there is you're cutting back on instead of saying unhealthy foods or fatty foods or whatever, let's call them energy dense foods. Energy dense foods are things that are full of carbs or full of fats, and they're more often than not just the heavy, not always junky, just heavy foods. It can be breads, it can be pastas, it can be rice, but not all those things are bad, and some of those things aren't bad. It can be your takeout, it can be those sort of things as well. So cutting back on some energy dense stuff a little bit, and then trying to include a little bit more of what we call nutrient dense stuff that's got all the good stuff, the vitamins and minerals in it. So that is your fruits, vegetables, that sort of stuff that's going to make you feel good, make your skin good, make your help with your sleep, all that sort of stuff. That's where that comes in. Following that stage, that just being better stage, and that's kind of the stage you're probably working on right now, a lot of you are. The next stage we're to work on, I call it the 80-20 rule and portion sizes. So 80-20 means that 80% of your food should be pretty nutrient dense and what we call healthy, and only 20% should be energy dense. So across your day or across your week, quick math, if you've got 10 meals, either 8 of those meals need to be full of just quality and 2 of those meals are a bit junky, or across those meals, 80% of your plate is quality, so 80% of your plate is like vegetables and lean meats, 20% is nutrient or energy dense, so rice or some pasta or something like that. And the other part of that is portion sizes. So paying attention to your portion sizes, because most of us have slightly big portion sizes. So just reducing them. We don't need a exact what is the right portion size. It's just whatever you do right now, let's make it a bit smaller. Yeah. So pay attention to that rule of 1, being better, and then following that up with 80-20 rule and adhering to a bit of a portion size. You're more likely than not already going to be putting yourself in the right position to be being healthier, feeling healthier, and if your goal is to lose weight, probably losing a bit of weight too. From that stage onwards, the third stage is what we call just calories and protein, and that's where using something like MyFitnessPal to track your food, we monitor the total calories that we're having as well as the total protein, and using different calculators. I like the TDEE calculator, tdecalculator.net, or just look up James Smith Academy calculator. I think his is a ripper. It gives you a good calorie target a good healthy calorie target, often you go to places, or even just the MyFitnessPal app will give you just a ridiculously low number for the person. So I recommend not using the one on MyFitnessPal. But yeah, so what you do here is if you're being better, if you're 80-20 and portion control, then it's going to make it easier to hit some sort of calorie number. Now, by having a protein target, so when you pick a protein target, the best way to do it is roughly combine times your total body weight or approximate body weight with about between 1.5 to 1.8. Okay, so if you're 100 kilos, times that by 1.5. Cool? That is the protein target for the day. So that'll be 150 grams. Cool? That's a good target. So what you do is if you're eating really well, and you're hitting a protein target, say 150 grams or 140 grams or whatever, it's very hard to eat too much carbs or too much fat because you're already aiming to eat healthy and you've got a protein target. Whatever's left over is going to be carbs and fat. If you don't have a protein target, so let's say you're aiming for 2,000 calories and you don't have a protein target and you only get maybe 40 grams of protein, but you still eat your 2,000, that means the remaining space is filled up with carbs and fat, and that's probably too high. You don't need to know what it is. It's not important. It just means it's too high. Whereas if we flip that and we go, we're going for 2,000 calories and I've got to get 140 grams of protein, it forces you to make choices that are, without even trying, you're going to have less carbs and fat. Cool? We don't want to eliminate them. Carbs and fat are important. We don't want to get rid of them. They're really important. But just this method here, by eating healthy and having a protein target, it automatically, without needing to get too complex, forces you to have a bit less of those two, and it has a really good effect on what you're trying to achieve. Cool? So protein target. The reason we have a protein target ahead of those two is protein is obviously used to help build muscle, maintain muscle, recover from things like your training. It also doesn't store as fat in the body. If we're super active, the others shouldn't matter that much either. But yeah, it's not going to store. So protein's our priority. The others will follow with the choices that you make and by hitting your kind of calorie target. Following that is the last stage, and I'm not going to get right into that. That's just the macronutrient stage. That's where you do actually set percentages for all three. So you have a protein target, a carb and a fat target, and you aim for all of them. It's really hard. It's really complex. It's not necessary for most of us. The way this scale works is it suggests that you work your way up towards it. So if you get to a point where you're absolutely nailing your calorie and protein target and you're doing really well and you're feeling good and you're getting leaner and maybe it's starting to slow down a little bit and you're struggling to get that little bit further, that's when we look toward to having a look at macros. And that's where I'm going to hand you straight over to Kristen, because that's outside my lane. That's too hard for me. So I'm not going to go much further than that. So have a little think about that. Ask questions. Drop in the comments if that doesn't make sense to you. But that's my favorite system for working on your nutrition. Cool. After a bit of time, if you feel like you're on top of your calories and protein and you're eating pretty habitually and it feels pretty good, then maybe you can stop tracking. And then you can kind of more focus back onto the 80-20 and portion size kind of level of the scale, which is where I sit most of the time. I don't track that often. And maybe if a competition comes up or football comes back and I'm like, oh, I better dial it in a little bit, I'm going to go back to the calorie and protein, and which is what I'm doing this week while we're journaling. And then it just dials me in a little bit. I'm like, oh shit, I've gone a bit off track here. I can just pull that back a little bit. I'm dropped off my protein. I better step that up a little bit. Once I'm on top of it, back to 80-20 and just cruise along. That's a fun way to do food, a way to just enjoy your food. It does mean that you can include things in your life that you want. That's probably the last thing I'll say as well about not demonizing foods and saying there's bad foods and I'm going to cut out chocolate forever and all that. Fuck that. Chocolate's yum. Include chocolate in your life. There's a lot of evidence and there's been studies that prove that actually including those things and allowing yourself to have a little bit of something that you love gives you substantially more chance of adhering to your diet. So at the end of the day, which is what I do, have a caramello koala at the end of just about every night, I'm far more likely to eat well the rest of the day. Whereas when you restrict yourself, you crack the shits, you end up having not just caramel koala, you have a block of caramel chocolate and then a bit more, and then you say, fuck it, I'm done. I'm going to just eat junk for the next 4 days, start again Monday. Everyone's nodding their heads because you've all done it before, okay? So include a little bit of something. If we get to the calorie level of things and your goal is 2,000 calories and you've got a protein target of 140 and you're eating healthy, like nutrient-dense food 80% of the time, why could you not fit in a caramello or a Freddo or something nice every night? There's no problem with that, okay? Live your life. Or a glass of wine. All right, that's it. Hopefully this gives you a little bit more of an understanding as you're journaling. Use this time to journal the food as a bit of, take in the information. Don't just write it and not pay attention. Think about what's going in. Think about what questions you want to ask. And then at the end of this, when you've finished a week's worth of journaling, I know some of you guys started early, come to us. Myself, Christy, Kristen are all going to be able to help you and help you with what to do next. Some of you will just go, Kristen's going to give you a food plan. Some of you, we might not need to do that. We might just go, hey, let's bump up this, let's drop down this. So everyone's going to be a different level. Cool? It's going to be very exciting. I'm pretty pumped to see what happens. And it's good that there's so many people doing this all at the same time, regardless of what level you're at with food. That's it. Enjoy the bloody sunshine.